And we'll start our recording.
Okay.
All right, well, welcome. As you know, we've kind of changed our format a little bit. We're doing shorter Zoom meetings with trainings and discussing our issues or whatever. And then we still are planning on having our one in-person meeting in the summer one for our auditor treasurers. That tends to get more toward fall, and then one for our assessors in the summer after we hear what the tax laws will be. Okay, so first up today, I'll have Susie load my.
We'll share this screen. I'll take this over here. Okay.
All right. So first up today, we are going to talk about the updated CPT tax web. And I hope we'll have the chat available like always. And please make your opinions known because we want to get this all settled. And it is up and running for 21 counties. We have 8 left that are in the process, but everyone has seen it. We made sure to get everyone's test link out and remind others to look at it so we could have a discussion today and get a few things settled so we can get everyone on the updated CPT tax web. And as you know, this is our first leg of the e-tax rewrite, so we're excited to get everyone updated and on the new tax web. So the first thing that has come to our attention is, and this concerns, so this will not impact counties that do not show their values on the web because we don't have that information if you don't have your values on the web. And there are 5 of those. I won't name them, but there are 5 that do not have their values on the web, which would be an option. I'll just say that much. And we may contact you later and ask if you would be interested in that. There is a cost, and that would be only $50 a month, but of course that would be more your assessor's call, probably. Anyway, so we knew that on the old tax web, we had 2 lines for everything if you did values, like what I'm showing. When we went to the new tax web, if there was not any change in ownership, we would just have 1 line showing the name and parcel, etc. So we kind of felt we had taken care of that issue. However, what's come up, okay, and so then the parcel information continued to show the tax statement name, description, information. And we put the new owner's name over under the value information as well. So like we're showing here, the parcel information continued to show the owner that the tax statement went out under. The appraisal summary, which 10 of our counties do, and that would be involving the CAMA data, had the new owner's name and an address and description and all of that. So what has come up is the question of if we should, in the parcel information, be showing that current, and so it would be 26, your tax year 26, 25, 26 information versus keeping it what was on the tax statement. That's the question. And we can do that. That is not an issue. We have the information, we can put it in there. And along those lines would be, well, do we want to show anything about what the tax statement went out under? And as it turns out, in our tax information tab, not so much the dashboard, but we have this big chunk of open space that we could put the full name and address and even the legal that it was sent under. We could do that. And that's my question to you today. Would anyone care to weigh in here? You can just unmute and have your say, or you can send a chat.
The question is the parcel information in the dashboard screen, which set of information?
Not just the dashboard. It would be the full tab too.
And the
yes,
parcel information
to
tab.
Have the value, the current information, what would be for the 25-26 payable versus keeping it. Obviously, if there's no sale, it's the same.
So in those two places right now, it's pulling tax statement information.
Yes.
And there's been a suggestion to change it to the current taxpayer. Yes. And we're wondering how people feel about that.
Yes. As well, if you would care to, if we would go that route, if you would care to have this screen expanded to display some of the tax information, because this is the tax statement information right here.
So the tax information tab will be the tax statement information, and we could add info to that tab if we want to.
If they change, I mean, if you don't, I mean, it would be kind of redundant. Any thoughts on that?
Feel free to unmute or to comment in. How would you feel about making those changes? Or do you have any questions? Are we hearing that nobody cares, that you'd be fine if we just changed that taxpayer information? I like the idea of making those changes, Leanne says. Of doing the current information in. So
Leanne, you unfortunately would not be able to do that because you do not have values. You are one of the counties that does not have values.
This is Daryl from Faribault County. I think I don't know if it's a group thing, but if we did change the top part to the 2026, I can see having that 2025 information on the bottom as pertinent information. But if it wasn't there, I don't think we'd have too many people complain that it's not there. Maybe a few.
There's always a few, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. And I mean, 4 out of 14,000, I mean, I can take four calls.
Well, I think if we make this change, we will expand that screen. We have the room. We might as well put the name and address of at least of the people that the tax statement was sent under. But the more pressing question is what to do about the parcel information screen.
So if we change the dashboard screen and the parcel information screen are tied together.
Yes.
So if we change that top left on the dashboard to current information, then we have to change the parcel information screen to have current information here.
Well, they actually are, they're all hand in hand, the dashboard, and then it's an expanded version on the tabs.
Yeah, this goes to the parcel information screen. So then should we make that change? The only place the tax statement information would be the tax information screen.
Right.
Does anyone object to that? This would be a change for everyone who has tax. Yes, is there anyone who would have issues should we change that? We think most of the assessors would be fine with it because we're putting their information more places. it's the auditor treasurers whose taxpayer, tax statement information being removed. We want to make sure none of you are uncomfortable with that.
And you maintain, a lot of you, the name, address, descriptions anyway. So it is your information. It really isn't the assessor's information. We did put the new name on the assessor's information. We already did that. But
Yeah.
there's the feeling that the parcel information should be the current. And along those lines, we probably would have to change that, not probably, we would change the year up there to say assessment 25, pay 26. Because that's what it would be.
This is
Okay,
Vicki from Douglas.
yes,
I think if we think about what the purpose of this site is, it's not for us, it's for our taxpayers. So
yeah,
they're gonna see the most current data. They're going to want to see their name up here. In my
Probably
opinion.
the old, probably
We have
the old
access-
tax.
go ahead, Vicki.
I said, we have access to our, I don't go out here and look around and search for information. We use our tax system. So this, to me, we got to look at this. This is a public facing page. What is the public going to want? Not what are we going to want?
And along those lines, the feeling is that this might be a little behind if this isn't here, and you're not behind. You have the current information in all of your systems. So I think unless someone expresses an objection here, we will make that change.
Yeah, we've got a few more agreements with Vicki that the.
So do we have a disagreement?
If
Right.
you have a disagreement,
Yes.
let us know
Yes,
ASAP.
you can email us after the meeting if you think it over and you strongly disagree, but this is then the approach we will take. Okay, also on this screen, I want to point out, there was a question about, and it's not very large, but underneath the gross pay on the right, if we could change that to credits. And yes, we are going to be looking at this screen also under the specific credits listed on the right column. We will be getting rid of homestead credit, changing that to school bond. This screen does need to be looked at. There's no doubt about it. We were just trying to get everyone over to our new tax web, and then we will take a look at that and see what's outdated, etc. So now I want to go back to the people that actually do not have values on the web. And I'm going to pick on Wadena because this seems to be a good idea, is they put right on their disclaimer about the taxpayers, and I can't hardly read that.
Yeah. Hold on, let me see if I can make it. I can zoom in.
But they make reference to the point that I was making, that we don't have that information. We don't pull that across to your web if you don't do value. So we only have the taxpayer that the tax statement was sent under. And this makes reference to that this taxpayer information could be, I don't want to use the word behind, but what I'm getting at here is we could do that for all of our counties that do not put values on the web. And it's kind of a disclaimer trying to, hopefully it's read, it's in red, and hopefully people read it and realize that that's what it's trying to say. That if there was a sale, it's still going to be listed under the taxpayer that the tax statement was sent to. And that can be, you don't have to answer now. We can contact you afterward. If you know who you are and you like that idea, you can just email us after the meeting.
We have a question.
Mhm.
Is it possible to move the hamburger area next to the county picture to somewhere else? We are experiencing people not seeing that icon to do an additional search, etc. Maybe in line with the rest of the tabs.
Who's that from?
That's from Amanda Riegert.
Amanda, we'll get to that point. We've done a lot of work on our searches. So
And then
I'll circle back to that.
Lori asks, is there a search by name? That's up to the county.
Yes, that is a county option. Most counties, that's the only one that's questionable. I mean, everybody does by parcel, everyone does E991 address. There's a section township range, I believe. But the name is kind of, I mean, all of those are a county option, but the name is a county by county option. And so if you feel that you want that for your county and you're currently not seeing it, all you have to do is let us know. It's the flip of a switch and it can be there. So, okay. So we'll move on. And just to let you know that what your dashboard looks like can be changed. If you do have values, we would have to have your assessor's approval as well. But if you, for instance, don't like that we go from parcel to tax to value, you want your special assessments up there and you want your value popped down here or whatever. These tiles on the dashboard can all be rearranged. So I'm just throwing that out there so you know when we set you up, we kind of set you up with like a default. But if you look at the dashboard and decide, no, I don't like that order, and that's what I'm talking about, the order of your tiles here, you can just let us know. And as long as you and the assessor agree, that can be changed. That is customizable to the county. Okay, just a couple of different, okay, so now we'll talk about delinquent tax. So this is kind of funny to me. You probably won't think it's humorous, but we didn't realize that delinquent tax was being paid all along on the old tax web. We thought that if you didn't have the delinquent flag, of which there was only like about 3 counties, that they weren't being paid. Well, yes, they were being paid. It's just what was happening is on the old screen, they would just click that they wanted a partial amount, and then they just pop in an overpayment amount. And then when you all got that amount, you would apply it to their delinquent taxes. And so we didn't really realize that. But what we did in our new tax web under the heading of allowing delinquents is the delinquents will come into this screen. You are able to customize your message down here about how the payments will be applied. So say they pop in an amount on the oldest year versus the most current. You're just telling them you may do that, but that isn't how it's going to get applied. Now, even if they do that, there will not be overpayments. And this is the part that I think our counties, all of you like the best, is even if I pay this and you apply it up here, it's still not going to be an overpayment. Obviously, these two amounts probably aren't going to be the same, so maybe this won't be paid in full, or maybe it will be paid in full and a little bit will slide to this year. But there will not be overpayments. The other thing that we're working on is passing into the credit card the parcel end year. all in one field. So when you get to the credit cards now, you will be able to see that this is parcel 1/1000 2025 and 1/1000 2024. You'll be able to see that right in your credit card, their shopping cart. This is our shopping cart, but then it passes on to the credit cards. So what I'm getting at here is I don't see any reason that everybody wouldn't want to do delinquent tax this way. We only set the flag though, and we can put in a default message. We have a couple. When you look at this, this will be posted on our website after the meeting. You could look at a couple of these, and you can even put anything you want to tell the taxpayer how this is going to be applied. But you will have to contact us and tell us you want delinquent payments. We don't just do that, but you can think it over, and being as it's set up this way, I really think it's slick for you. Any comments on that?
Nope.
Okay. Along the line, we also had a request for why do we only do 2 years of tax statements? And my answer to that is, well, I don't know why we only do 2 years of tax statements. I guess it was kind of set up that way, and that's the way it's been. It isn't like we don't have more years available. We do. I would be careful going back over 5, because as we were adding that field, the field we talked about to the tax statements, we had to also add to the old tax statements. And I discovered that in prior years, those files weren't always saved faithfully. So I would be hesitant to go back more than 5 years because I don't know if you would have the data. But that would be an option, and that doesn't have to be decided today, but I'm throwing it out there. If the question was asked, I don't have a definitive answer. If you all would feel like, yeah, I'd like to have more years available, we could do that. Okay, we've had a lot of people ask us, and let me go back to, I had that right here, this message, that it was running into our button. And as well, this button we did make red, but then there was a comment, it's really hard to see. And it actually is hard to see. So what we did is we made that white again. It has the red little information or whatever here. And it has the message here that we've now cleaned up so it doesn't just butt right up against your button. I do want to make one comment about what we say here about the 72 hours as well. We've had some talk that, well, sometimes we don't get things posted that fast. And could we change that? And this really isn't maybe my business, but I don't know. I'd be hesitant to change that to any longer. I realize that sometimes in a certain time of year, you don't get things posted. And if you tell us, we absolutely have to change that to what, 96 hours? I mean, we might want to say 5 days then. I don't know. But to me, when I look at that message myself as a taxpayer, I'm like, oh, well, don't expect this to be instantaneous. That's what I think. The number there, I don't know. But that's something that's been talked about. And for you counties that kind of felt that way, maybe you could think it over and just let us know. Okay, moving on. So we have done a lot of work with navigation. And the first thing that I think I'll say is I think a lot of people that look at our tax web don't know what the hamburger is. And it's still there and it still works and it still has all of the things in it. But we've added a lot of navigation buttons to help with that. On the main screen, we added 2 buttons to help you just quickly get back to a new search. And actually this back takes you back to your results list. We've changed that wording already. I just didn't get new screens from yesterday into this, but you'll see it further down that we've changed this to results list to help our people who are navigating this to get quickly back to a different search, whatever else they want to do as well. This is when you have your search results. So you have your back button that you can get back to a new search. And then showing the hamburger, you can always use that to navigate the tax web. And in the shopping cart. And the shopping cart seems to kind of be, well, this is where all the action takes place, really. And that seems to be where we need to do maybe some work. We've added buttons, but what we're thinking of doing is having a little question mark or a way to get to a help screen that we can explain if needed, how to navigate this. So what we did is this little plus right here takes you to this where you can put in a new search and you get the results list right there that you can start adding parcels. But if you don't want to do that, you can always go back to your results list. We've added that. This arrow takes you back to the dashboard. This results list takes you back to your original search. And this search obviously takes you back to a new search. And as well, this little plus button takes you to right there, right on the screen. You can do another search and you get a results list right there and you can pick parcels. So with all that, and if we add a little help screen to this, I think we've kind of done a lot, covered our bases here. Tricia, when will this be out for them to see?
Let's say Monday, because I
Okay.
need to test,
Yep.
complete the testing.
So by Monday, you will see all of this. You already see like where it says, let me go back. Sorry.
No, it's
You already see this, but all that we've added to the shopping cart, you won't see till Monday. We'll say Monday, that'll all be up and running because we are already testing that out. So with that, I will,
open it up to questions.
yeah, Amanda's statement and a couple others. Do you feel that that will take care of the issues? Obviously, we won't have the help screen done by Monday, but all of the buttons and all of that updated.
Amanda, yes, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so I think this is the last issue, but it's come to several people have commented on the parcel information and mainly on the dashboard that the property address and the school description, they stack. And the reason they stack is because this is a variable screen. This sizes to the size of the screen you're on. Meaning this is how it looks on a 27-inch monitor. This is how it looks on a laptop. See how it's really stacking. And this is how it looks on a phone. I know we're all used to the green screen where things were very defined. This line was this and this line was that. But the web isn't the green screen. And we have to make it sizable to the size of the monitor you're on. We've discussed if we can do different things, but they just aren't real feasible. So I'm basically just explaining to you why it is the way it is.
We have
Okay.
a comment. We get comments that we have the best website around, so thank you. Good explanation. That makes sense now.
All right. Well, great.
We'll take
Okay,
it.
so that is all I have on the tax web. Like I said, and you can, if you have other questions, you can put them in the chat. But like I said, we are working on our final 8 to get everyone to our new tax web. And at that point, because this was a question along the line, and one thing I want to point out is in the hamburger, you can get to any CPT county. All you have to do is go up there, it says other counties or something to that effect, and you can go to from Douglas to Candy to Norman to whatever. So that's really nice, I think. And so our final 8, we're getting there. And then when we get that far, the old CPT tax web will be disabled. We're working toward that. I know you at the beginning had said, well, we can still, if they have it bookmarked, they can still get there. Well, now we didn't update your tax information there, so it'd be pretty useless. But yes, that's true. It was up and running. It still is, but we're working on it. And as soon as we can get everybody there, that will be disabled.
We have a question. What is the best way to view unpaid taxes?
Oh, I think I have that up here. It's on the bottom of the tax info screen. Is it
Underneath, we
there?
can pull it up too.
Yeah.
Tax info.
That wouldn't be.
No.
Yeah, tax summary.
This is Kelsey. The only way I can find it is by going to the dashboard and then going down to tax billing and then hovering
Yes.
over that info. Is that the only way we can do it?
Well, if you actually click the tax summary,
Here, I'm gonna give you a
you
website.
get the full screen,
Okay.
and then it should list the tax unpaid underneath.
Where it says the checkout, underneath there will be a line of all taxes that aren't been paid, so.
Okay.
Even
I
if you
found-
don't do delinquents.
They're still there,
They're still.
just like your tax inquiry screen.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else?
Here, I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger so we can see more. Why is it not doing it for me? Okay, hold on. We may have already covered this, but have we already changed? Have we already covered the tax web change, including legal description, disclaimer, warning? Taxpayers, viewers not to use the brief legal description that is displayed on the tax web on legal documents.
Who's that from?
Vicki and Douglas. I do not believe we talked about that.
We did not talk about, we haven't.
Do we have a disclaimer? I'm sorry.
I had emailed Gwen and
Okay.
Mike some time back saying that our county recorder had attended some kind of a training session where they pulled up a different county's website. And on their website, where there's a brief legal description displayed, there was a disclaimer in red print that said, do not use this legal description summary on legal documents, because our county recorder does see that happen from time to time where people will grab the legal description off our tax web and it's not the complete legal. So she was wanting that to be put on our tax web as well, just to warn people that this is not a complete legal description.
And that
Do
would
not-
be right on that parcel screen, right?
Yeah, anywhere where a brief legal description is displayed, just add that disclaimer.
Sure. I don't think anyone would have any problem with that, and that should be fine.
That would be much appreciated. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We also did the same on our GIS site for any other counties listening that might want to consider that as well.
Anyone else?
We have people saying that would be great. That's a great idea. There's
Okay.
a disclaimer on Beacon for those who use it. Okay.
Okay, so what I've discussed today, we will move forward on. And so also, I'm going to hop back to, this was spoken about before, but I just want to bring it to the forefront and let you know that we are moving forward with this now that we've pretty much completed our tax season. That we need more than 99 TI districts. And the Department of Revenue was quite helpful, actually. Well, I didn't mean it that way. But that this, and it is here, that this TIF code is 3 long. In our system, it is only 2. But we can use this on decertified districts. We can add another field here, and we're going to, that this number, which is our number, and it is 2-digit, will go over here, and this will be your state number. Now you'll have to use a decertified district, and I would suggest using one that's been decertified for a while. But after it's decertified and it sits over in the treasurer's module, it won't affect anything, because all we really use this for at that stage of the game is the description we sometimes put somewhere. And if we would need to gather up these parcels, well, this one had 1, but I mean, some have many, we could look at the years this ran from when it started to when it was decertified and say, oh, well, those 10s are the ones that were in this district. And if you would reuse 10, I would suggest, if you start reusing, that you reuse your oldest ones first. So there is a year separation in there. And then we will be able to do this. And I got a gift last week. I usually don't, but this program was written many years ago when we were going to redo the system file on our current green screen system. And then we just switched to e-tax, and this was never implemented. So I found this and I'm like, oh, sweet. We can just use this to get our start here. And then we'll have to go through the programs that actually use the 2-digit, 3-digit, and the state number and change those. And so I think this will be doable with the least amount of pain in our old system.
Question, at what point would we need to reuse TIF districts?
When you have more than 99.
Once you've used 1 through 99.
Yes,
then
that
you
is when.
Need to add another one.
Obviously, this happens to be Stevens County, so they aren't in trouble, but we do have counties that are. And so that's the reason, and that's our proposed solution, which we will be working on like probably through the summer, so we can get it all in place by the time Prism 2 would roll around. Any questions on that? Okay, so the final thing I have today is just to talk a little bit about our past tax season and how we think it went. I'll just recap what our goals were. Our goals were to get all of your rates and your first calculations and review your tax total, special assessments, and get yourself happy with that so that you were at the point that you felt you were ready to print tax statements. And at that point, you would accumulate and submit Prism 3 so that we could get the sense or get even certified before we printed those tax statements and sent them. So there was a few hiccups. We have a few programming changes to make to our Prism file, but as far as the process, I think it went well, and we even got our new homestead file submitted like people were done by April 1st.
Mhm.
It was just amazing. We had to move fast,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it was great. We thought it was great. But if there's feedback, please put it in the chat, speak out.
Yep. We have the new process was good. Anyone else, positive, negative, anything you particularly liked or you'd like to see us do differently next year? Went smooth, liked it. This is the kind of feedback we like to hear. I mean, you don't have to be just stroking our egos. I really liked it too. But we're not going to complain. Yeah, they liked having it submitted before the statement sent out. You felt a lot better about I felt like people felt a lot better about their statements this year, knowing that Prism was already done.
All right. Well, that is great. It's always nice when something like that happens.
Mhm.
So I will turn it over to Susie.
Yep, we have some training to do here. Okay, so first, I'm just going to show you, this is kind of a last minute request, but just so you know, this is the link that gets sent out with every sequence email, and it's a page that we upkeep where recent sequences are loaded on here. So if you wonder, was that sequence sent out? Did I miss it? Where is it? You can always contact us, but you can also go here and look. Once a sequence is old enough that we don't want you using it anymore, we'll pull it off of here. I mean, we're about to grab all this stuff off, but we're really close to that. But then at the bottom, we're starting to put other documents. So we're going to talk real quickly here about doing new tax statements. If you need to update a tax statement, and if you want to get that to the web, that will be that's gone over at the end of this abatement edition guide, because you use the abatement edition option to do those tax statements. But if there's other guides that you'd like to see us make, if there's information that you're looking for, look here and then feel free to reach out to us and ask us to start to update things. We don't promise to have it done immediately, but we are keeping a list of resources we need to make. This link, like I say, it's on every sequence email, and I will also include it on the email for this meeting. So you maybe just want to bookmark it and be able to go back to it whenever you want. Along those lines, for those who, funny, I'm talking about, oh no, I did share my screen. Okay, good. Like I'm talking about those who use the link and then I don't have it up. We're just going to log in here quick. On the last page of that addition abatement guide, it talks about doing updated tax statements. And there are really two places that people do those, and the format for them is pretty much the same. So the first spot would be in your work files, and we do have a work file guide on that sequence page. But if you go into work files, if you pull your information into work files, you change your information, you can over here take option 16 and print statements. That option works the same way that your abatement addition statement option works. It just works with the data that you've pulled into your work files. The abatement addition option is in Tax M23, so I'm going to take option 3 from here. And that's where if you make an abatement or an addition, then you would take option 19 to list those tax statements. And I'm just going to walk through here. This question here, do you wish to delete the statements file after printing? I believe if you choose an X here, when you go in and you print statements and you get back out, all of the statements in that file will go away.
If you choose a yes.
If you choose a yes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not certain what statements are being held there, or if somebody is like saving one they might want to reprint, the best option is to choose a no here. You can always go back into this option and take a yes to get rid of statements if you get too many built up.
Or a blank. We only delete it on a yes.
You only delete it on a yes. A blank is considered a no. But it's right now it's kind of like building that file for me. It's taking a little longer because I think I'm using the Wi-Fi here. But then I'm going to pull a tax statement in here. You enter your parcel number and your year, right, that you did, and then hit enter through all these screens. If you've already made the changes, you shouldn't have to change anything here, but you can proof to make sure the changes were made. Once you enter through all these screens, then once you get to this base screen, you go down here and hit F6 to print your tax statements. And I want a statement with stubs. In order to do this option, you have to pick a 4 to do the PDF option. When you get to the PDF option, you have 2 options. And this is why I wanted to show you, because for those of you with our new web, you no longer have to contact us about moving your statements to the web. They'll go automatically overnight if you do it right. But we're seeing people missing a step, so I wanted to just highlight that step for you. In order to print these, you'd put a P in front of the statement, and then you'd hit enter. And if your X drive is mapped, a PDF will pop up on your screen. In order to move them to the web, you have to put an X in front of it, and then you have to hit enter. And when you hit enter, you get a Y on your web. In order for it to send to the web, you have to get that Y over here. And then if you hit F5, it will update to the web. And that's all you do. And then overnight, those statements should update to your web. If you have our old text web, you still need to contact us and tell us that they're out there. If you have your new text web, they go automatically. So like I say, both of those statement options, they're in different spots. They pull different info, but they work the same way. The other one, it would look just the same as this one. Any questions with that? I'm going to kind of assume not. And if we have no questions, then I'm going to go into hello. Okay. So now we're going to run through some of the sequences that we recently sent out. The first one is the ACH tax payment sequence. This is in Tax M32. All of the things we're talking about are in that option 9. We're going to start with step 1, which is to take option 10 and maintain your bank information. In order for this to work, you need to set up your county bank information. For just your county's bank, you're going to want to say yes to the debit and input your county's bank information here, those routing numbers. All your other banks will be no to debit, and they'll just have one routing number. For your county's bank, you need to have this set up. Once it's set up, you're good to go. We explain this in the sequence, but these are your routing numbers. 22 is for checking, 32 is for savings. This one has to do with how your bank expects to receive the information. If you don't know what to do there and you want to start like using our interface and doing using the ACH and doing these things, you just need to figure out from your bank how they want that information sent. Share that information with us, and we will look at our files and tell you what bank type your bank is. Other thing you can do in this option 10 is to hit an F21, which will print your list of banks. You can print by bank number or by bank name, and it'll generate this to your spool file that shows you, all the banks that you have. The next step, step 2, is to go and maintain, once you've maintained your banks, then you maintain your parcels. When you're going into the parcels, this is what that maintain parcel screen looks like. All of the F options at the bottom that have a box around them, those are like by each line option. So when you go in here and you want to add something, typically you would do an F8 to add. When you do that, it's going to bring you to the first empty line. So it's going to jump you down. You don't have to scroll. You can hit an F8. It jumps you down to your first empty line. And then as you're going across, you can use these boxed options to deal with that line. So this F2 prompt is for this spot. If you have your cursor on this bank number spot and you hit an F2 to prompt, it will pull up a listing of all the banks available and their routing numbers, so you can choose from that list. When you're on a line, if you hit an F9 email, that'll open an option to input an email. We don't currently pull that email or use it anywhere. It's just for information on the screen. If you use that to communicate to people who are doing ACH. And then the F4 and the F23 are to, if you want to not use a line. The F4 will suspend it where it's sitting there and it's saved, and you could unsuspend it later to use it again, or the F3 would permanently delete a line. Once you've inputted all those, you can also look at the taxpayers. Option 9 is our step 3 in our sequence. When you go in there, you would input a date that you want to use. We also recommend the first time you use any option in our system that you look at what we call the job control or the run instruction. So if you see an F17, that's a shift F5. It's like military time. F17 is a shift F5. And these are the fields you want to look at. Is it being submitted to job queue? That's a no. Sometimes that option in our job control is, do you want to run it locally, free screen, or job queue? And you always want to run it local, almost always want to run it locally. If you're seeing that option, you want to pick local or no to job queue. Then for printer name, you want to make sure you have a printer in here that you are connected to. This hold printout, yes, means it's going to hold this printout in your spool file. If you have a no here, when you run this option, it's going to automatically print on your printer. And then this save spool file option, if you say yes here, it will go to your spool file, but then if you choose to print it, it will remove it from your spool file. If you have a no here, it's going to keep that document in your spool file, whether you print it or not, until you delete it. So those are your job control settings. Anytime somebody's running an option for the first time, it's a good idea to look at your job control settings. I've seen some people who don't realize that they're running something, not that they're submitting something to a job queue, and maybe it works for a while and eventually it doesn't, and they don't know why, and it's because there was an issue with that job queue. But, yeah.
Just back to that screen, I think you said that backwards on the yes and no on the save. If you want it after you print it, you want that to say yes. And then you can delete it yourself later. If you have no, that means it just prints and it goes away.
Right.
Just wanted to clarify.
Thank you, Michelle. You're right. So if save to spool file, if you say no, that means that when you print it, the spool file is not still saved. That's correct. I said that backward. If you say yes, it will continue to save it. So yes on the top means save it until I print it. Yes on the bottom means save it forever. No on the top means print it right away. No on the bottom means save it until I print it. Thank you for that clarification. It's totally right. Okay, so going back to this date for editing the taxpayer names, you put in a date and it will generate a list of names to your spool file. And this list is going to include anything that has changed since this date and doesn't match the current spool file name. So maybe some of them, it used to be owned by this individual. Now it's owned by their business, but it's still the individual that's paying. So you want to leave it. But other ones, maybe the business sold it to an individual and the current taxpayer name actually is not paying it. This will let you know, like, maybe you have it set up to pay by the old owner, and you don't actually, like the new owner is now responsible for it. So it's a good idea to run that, shortly before you generate your list, your ACH list. After that is step 3, where you're going to print your ACH parcel edit. You have to run this option 2 in order to run options 3, 4, 5, and 7 by a specific date. So if you run 3, 4, 5, and 7 and you have not run your option 2, you might be generating the wrong information. So it's important to go into option 2 before you start, say, your May settlement, and say, I want to run it by a specific date, and then choose the date that you're doing. If you run it not by a specific date, you can do that at any time and just edit the information that's in this field. But when you run it by a specific date, you pick real estate, mobile home, or both. And then if you say no to printing in parcel order, or if you say no, it's going to print in parcel order. I should have changed this to a yes, because you most often want to say yes. And what that does is if there's a taxpayer that owns 3 parcels and is paying 3 parcels, they will have 1 payment go through their bank. If they're getting like charges by payment, they'll only get 1 payment. So typically you would answer this yes if you're doing it by a specific date, because that's going to have the fewest charges going through. And then when you do that, it's going to send an edit listing to your spool file of the payments that are going to go through on this, if you use this option. And then it will build the options for 3, 4, 5, and 7. So 3 is print taxpayer ACH notices. We do not have standard ACH notices. This sends you to the treasurer's report generator where you can build those notices. 4 creates a file to your tax bill folder. That's ACH EFT. If you run 4, that file has no dollar amounts. When you run 5, that file will have dollar amounts. When you run 4, you pick your, 5. This is 5. Pre-notes file, no dollar amounts. Oh, here we go. When you run 4 or 5, so this is telling you we're running pre-notes. 2 is when you select 2 here, that means you're taking the parcels that you chose when you ran your option 2 edit. If you choose 1 here, you can get all parcels. 2 pulls from the most recent edit. Then option 5 is similar to option 4, except it's going to create the same folder with the same name, but this one will have dollar amounts in it. And then there's the information that it asks you to put in. And then option 7 will create a counter posting batch that matches that PC file. Once, when you pull it up, it's going to ask you to input the counter batch information. Once you do that, it generates to your counter posting, and you can deal with it there like any other counter posting batch. So that's kind of the overview of the ACH. I know most of you are probably neck deep in it, have been doing it for a long time at this point of this year. Any questions before we move on to escrow? Similar but different escrow? Just scroll and it goes through.
I just hit this button. There we go. I'm going to talk about a quick overview of the escrow file sequence. To prep for escrow, you need to make sure that all your files are over to the treasurer's files. This option is also in the treasurer's area. You'll want to go into the file maintenance. You can update the escrow agents with number 5, and you'll be able to list them out with 15. You can add new parcels on number 6, and then you can also list them out on the report directly across, which is number 16. Then you're going to go into the escrow and you're going to create the PC file. If your bank requests a listing of escrow parcels, this option will generate a listing for the bank. This will also create a PC file for your tax bill folder, and that is labeled all those letters up there that you can attach to an email and send to the escrow company. If your bank wants a more specific listing, please contact us for assistance. Once you get into the escrow, you can select if you want all the agents, if you want to select specific escrow agents, you can hit that F2 option. Most common is option number 1 to select all the parcels. And then you are going to go to number 2, which is create file from the escrow payments. So once you receive a file from your escrow company, be sure to copy that file to your tax bill folder, type a name that you'll remember. So when you go to find it, you come to the screen, you can list that into the text line and then type the abbreviation for that escrow company to create that file. Once you do that, you can create an edit listing. This will create an edit listing in your spool file. This is where you can edit the files one at a time. This is where you'll see errors such as the payment is not equal to the amount due. It's not a valid parcel number. This is where you'll catch all those possible issues that you would have. Then you're going to maintain the escrow payment file. You can edit the payment amounts. You can delete and replace them. You can delete payments. But if you have invalid parcel numbers from the escrow company, you will have to ask them for a new file with either the correct parcel numbers or to have them delete out the incorrect one. If you don't have any errors, you are good to go. And then you will create a counter batch with these escrow payments. If you have multiple escrow companies, you'll need to select which escrow file payment you wish to post. You'll go in there and create the batch. You can leave the payment type blank or F2 to see the options. Make sure that you, if you click the Y at the bottom, it says delete file after your creation of batch. If you select Y, it'll delete the system from the escrow payment file. And God, I am not making any sense. I did this one. We'll leave the escrow payment mark posted, and then you'll have to go back and delete that out of there. But once this is created, you can go along and post it just like a normal tax batch.
All right, I'm going to keep going here, and then we'll get to tax settlement last. Just to kind of go through our confession of judgment, because I know we have had a few questions about that, and we don't cover it very often. If you have somebody come in asking for a confession of judgment, you would go into our TaxM, the Auditor's Office Miscellaneous Subsystems. Option 13 sends you to this confession of judgment menu. Options 1 and 5 are going to give you the same screens. Option 1 will make a confession of judgment in the system. Option 5 will do a what if. We recommend that if somebody comes in saying, how can I do a confession of judgment to pay these? You walk them through these option 5 questions and have them take the document that's made to court with them so that the judge can order what our system can do. That just tends to be better long-term for upkeep in the courts. They like to have things clean, and it sets people's expectations appropriately. So whether you take option 1 or option 5, you're going to get this as your first screen. You need to have delinquent tax in order to do this. You would put in the payable years that they're talking about adding. You'd put in whether it's a 5-year or a 10-year plan, and then you'd fill in all these options. We highly recommend putting the costs and fees on the first year. You're going to get that first payment. There's not going to be any interest on that first payment. It just seems to work a lot better if you put those costs and fees on the first year. And then, if you have the first year extra months where it's starting, you would say yes here. If you don't, you could say no. We also highly recommend that you use monthly interest. That's what we have done most of our programming for. That's what the courts are liking to see. They're not liking the annual interest anymore. And it gives people a reason to make those payments early instead of like waiting till Christmas time when they don't have any money. If you say the monthly, then they get a discount basically if they pay early. The fees down here, it's a good idea to put any fees that you know will be there in, especially if you're doing a what if, so they can bring that document to court. It's up to you whether you go back and you make this, whether you run these fees through our system. If you put them in here, they will be settled out just like all your other costs, penalties to your county, and then you would have to distribute them. Or whether you, especially if they're paying right up front, whether you, just take that payment separately, settle it right now, and then just process the taxes through the system. It's up to you how you run that. Then the confession of judgment start date. The thing to note about the start date is that you cannot input payments until after the start date. So if somebody comes in today, April 10th, we would recommend starting, and they have a payment and you want to process that payment today, we'd recommend saying that the confession of judgment started yesterday, April 9th, so you can process that payment today. And then we have you put in the second payment due date, and then we process the rest of the payments after that automatically. Keep in mind though, if you're making this and you're going to process a payment right away, especially if you're going to process a payment right away, that the only thing you can change after payments are made, the only thing you can edit on here is the court file number. So you're going to want to make sure everything else is correct, print it out, proof it with them, have it proofed internally, because once you input a payment, the only thing you can change is you can go back here and you can add a court file number. The next screen will look like this, and it will list the taxes, the penalty, the interest that's currently sitting on this parcel, and it pulls the total amount here. We'll see this total amount on the next screen. The total here is kind of odd on the next screen, so you'll see. And then at the bottom, it puts in the first year payment and additional year payments. The first year payment's helpful because that's what they're going to have to pay when they come in with the confession. The additional year payments, we'll show how those pull in, but that's kind of like a base payment for the additional years. So the following screen, the last screen here, you can see the total pulled through here. And what we did is these payments that are here, we combined them all together into this amount, and then we took that amount and we just spread it out between their 10 years or 5 years or whatever. So this still adds up to their total. Now, like I said, if you put fees on the first year, then this first year payment is the true, like what they have to pay when they start that confession. And any additional payments, they'll have to pay the interest. So even though this is the base payment, on upcoming payments, there will be more because there's additional interest being added. Now, if they pay them sooner, they'll pay less. And we can get into how you can see that. But they also need to know, if you're running a what if and you're running it in April and they come back in May, this is going to change because the penalties and interest and things change from 1 month to the next. So you might want to communicate with them about that. Choose your starting date appropriately. Once you exit, once you hit enter and leave that last screen, it's going to generate this PDF. It should pop up on your screen. And for what ifs, this is what they would bring to the court, and they would present this to the judge, and the judge would order the information that's just on here. That makes it real easy for you to input into your system. If you're starting a new one, this is the PDF you could print and give to them, and it will show them kind of what to expect for their payments. And you can explain that here on the bottom, if they pay before December, they'll actually end up paying less. If they pay the full amount before December, it will be credited to upcoming years. That's typically what happens. If they come in earlier and you want to let them pay less, that's up to you. We'll get into how you can find that. The next thing that we do is we talk about option 3 in the sequence, confession of judgment listing. You take option 3 and you can list all, or you can pull a specific one, and that basically just pulls up that PDF again for any confession that you have currently in your system. So just so you know, we do our finance flags, and our finance flags pull every night the information from the confession of judgment system. So if you added a confession, this is what the finance flag is going to look like today, and this is what it will look like tomorrow, because I added that confession for 2022 to 2024. That will update automatically overnight. That also updates if we delete or pay them off, and we'll show that when we get there. And this, hold on, this finance flag, that helps, you know, if you're saying we don't want to, for newspaper listings, you don't want to print confession parcels or things like that. That's where we have these finance flags. If you want to remove a confession, you would go into option 1 and you would pull up that confession, and then you'd hit F4 to delete it. If you delete a confession, it automatically immediately removes those finance flags, and the confession is gone out of your system. So be careful about that, but obviously we sometimes don't pay off these confessions and we have to remove them other ways. Now, if you're looking for a confession of judgment, there are a few places you can see it. In inquiry on the tax NAD screen, it'll say there's a confession. And then when you go to the tax unpaid screen, it'll say that there's a confession, and down here, all the years that are active for that confession will show up in red. And if you put your cursor on any of those red years and you hit enter, it's going to pull up the sort of current payment amount due schedule. When you pull it up, it figures additional interest to today for the current payment. So if they paid a payment as of today, they would owe $1,556 for the year on this. And then these below, these are showing from the original like amortization schedule, what their payments are for upcoming years. If you want to know what the payoff is for today, you would put in today's date at the bottom, field exit and hit enter, and it's going to pull up if they wanted to pay this off as of today. Here's the amount they would pay. Originally, it shows you the amount they pay to pay up the year as of today. If you put in that, this is going to show you the amount that they can put in, that they would pay to pay off this as of today. Also, if they say, well, what if I paid this amount? What would be left? You can put in a date and an amount, and it would say, well, if you paid this amount on this date, here's what the rest of it looks like. And you can get that. And you can always, print the screen for them so they can see that amount. So you can get a lot of information about COJs in your inquiry screen. In order to post a payment to a confession, you would go into your counter posting and you'd put a C here. If you don't put in a C here, it's going to pull up the current taxes for this parcel. If you put a C here, it'll pull up the confession. You do have to pay current taxes separately from confession taxes. When you pull up a confession parcel, it's going to automatically load down here the amount needed to pay off that parcel. And if you put that amount in here, it will, make that payment. If they made a partial payment, which typically they are as we go through, you put in the amount that they brought in on this red line and hit enter, and our system will automatically update this so that they're paying the appropriate amount of interest and tax to pay to make this payment today. And then you would press F5 and you would process it like any other counter posting. Now, in order to find that, it was made in 2025, but it was not applied to 2025. We could see in here that it had taxes due in 2012. So in order to find that payment, you'd have to pull up this parcel in 2012. So you'd go into inquiry and you'd put the parcel number in and you'd put 2012 in, and then go to the transaction history page. And that would show you that on April of 2025, you made a payment to this pay 2012 tax. That's how you find those confession payments. Now, when we paid up this confession, immediately in your inquiry, you're not going to see, or in your finance flags, you're not going to see that finance flag because there's no tax due in 2012 anymore. So that finance flag, you won't see it. And then in your inquiry screen, that payment date year will go away and your confession will go away. This confession in other years on your tax NAD, That's the part that's actually going to update overnight. We do update overnight, and overnight, then the next day it will not show up on that screen. So that's it for confessions. Any questions? Is Liz back? She was going to share tax settlement, but then had to step away. So I said, yes, Julie and I can cover that for her. I'm going to pull up her PowerPoint. If Liz is back, she can cover that, but I think she had to be gone. So we will just walk through the settlement. The settlement sequence that we sent out is changed significantly this year. It goes through a little bit more information about where those settlements are, and it covers on the financial interface as well. We highly recommend counties that are not yet switching to our financial interface. I think we have, how many counties? 3 or 4 that we're that we're going to help get set up. So if you are interested in using our financial interface, please reach out. We will work with you to get the information and to help get it all set up for you, and then walk through it with you. So we're happy to do that. We're very lucky to have Julie here now, who did the IFS part of this when she worked at the county, and now supports IFS here, so we can help you with both sides, and you're not kind of just off on your own. But I can walk through this, but holler if there's something that needs to be said, because I obviously didn't prep it. So the sequence walks through a lot of information that you may or may not need, and we'll just walk through that here so that those of you who need it will see it. Before you run your settlement, we suggest running reports. In Tax 724, there's an overpaid tax listing that will list any overpayments, and we suggest you, fix those before you run your settlement. It's a lot easier to, do a refund or to fix that before you run your settlement than to go back after. So this is now step 1 of the sequence, to go back and run that. We also hope that you're looking at your receipts journals, your refund journals, your add-abate journals. Obviously, this is where we're pulling information. I believe a lot of counties look at these, regularly when they are, proofing with financials. But make sure you've done all of that for the time frame that you're running the settlement for. Now, yes, right. So receipts journals, add-abate journals, refund journals. We also have delinquent journals. And then we'll prep for and list unpaid settlements. Oh, question. From what I understand, because we use 2 accounts for our settlement in IFS, we cannot use the GFL interface, correct? We have one account for current tax and another one for delinquent tax. That's not true. When we do the settlement interface, we have columns for current tax, and then for delinquent tax, and for mobile home. So no, you absolutely can use our settlement interface, even if you use separate accounts in IFS. Great question. Has that changed recently?
No. Stephen's done that forever.
No, we just have better information for you now. So,
Susie,
yeah.
just a comment on that.
Okay.
Are they talking about that first line in the settlement interface where we enter the main tax, where you've been receiving your taxes in, though, where it zeroes out the account for you at the end of the interface? Do you think?
That still has the delinquent and
You can still
current.
feed it into delinquent and current, and it'll zero.
That still has 3 options, Michelle, right?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
I use all the same account to make it easy, so that's why whenever people are using multiple accounts, it confuses me a little. But yeah, sorry. I was thinking on that first line we didn't have all those, or we didn't fill all those
So
in.
here, yeah, we've got this where you've got this is for your current, here's your delinquent, here's your mobile home. A lot of counties use the same, some counties don't, but we can accommodate that.
Yep.
Great questions. Okay.
what we did add was the formulas. They weren't there in the beginning.
You can now use IFS formulas
Yes.
if you split out for like who, what do they do?
Human
that-
services.
Human services or things like that. You can now accommodate those formulas as well. So really, it should hopefully work for everybody. So once you're done with your receipts journals, you're going to prep and list your current settlements. For these settlements here, I mean, everyone's dates are going to be slightly different. You have to make sure that you're not missing any dates, even if it's over a weekend. We want you to have every date covered. But once you prep one of these, you don't want to prep it till you're ready. Once you prep it, you shouldn't have to prep it again. If you want to run like a what if, or I want to see how it's going so far, you can go in here and you can put a 6 in up here and do whatever dates you want. And then that you have to prep every time because we don't keep that information. We just prep it and then list it. But if it's, not May, but you want to see what your settlement's looking about, like you can go in here and you can do an estimated settlement with that information. You can't pull estimated settlements into your interface. They're just for your information. Once you input these dates and you run a settlement, we lock these dates in so you can't change them. If that's an issue, you can contact us. But because we want to make sure you're not rerunning dates, we lock them once you've run something. So once you go in here and you run option 2 for your June settlement, then you go into your list settlement option and you choose option 2, which will list it for whatever one you prepped, the one you prepped, and then you choose how you want to list it. Again, you can come back and relist until we remove the year. Once we remove the year, you can't do this. But your receipts is going to pull your counter postings and your regular postings. Your add abate settlement is going to pull in your additions and your abatements. You can run an unpaid settlement to see what was left. And then if you used our refund option, we've got a menu options that are refunds. That doesn't pull into your receipt settlement. That pulls into your refund settlement. So you'll just want to run that settlement too. But you can prep all of those, list all of those. They'll pull through to financials together. Additionally, in our real estate settlement, you can combine current and delinquent. If you want to do that, you need to have already prepped your delinquent settlement. So you can't list your delinquent settlement until you have prepared your delinquent settlement. But then you can choose, how you want them listed. If you want it to create a PDF in your tax bill folder, or pop up, or go to your spool file. We also have mobile home settlements, listings and settlement options in our mobile home subsystem, and we list how to get to them. We have listings and settlements in our mineral interest system and in our wind tower system and in our transmission line system. Every once in a while, we have a county do their real estate with their delinquents and think that they're done. Realize if you've taken those monies in and you want to do that, you have to go prep those settlements, and they also have their own financial interfaces that, again, we can help you set up. So once you've prepared your settlement and you've proved your settlement and everything looks good, then you can go into our financial interface and you can prepare capture totals, prepare to transfer, to build the transfer for any settlement that you have prepped. So you would go into the financial interface and you'd run option 4 to capture totals. So your options 1 and 2 are like setup, upkeep, maintenance. Option 4 is capture totals. If you run option 4 and there's something that we're trying to capture that you have not set up in option 1,
0.
Yeah, it'll give you an error.
it'll give you an
can't-
error.
Yeah.
At the top, it'll say all zeros.
Yeah, and it'll show you what you need to go add, correct? So you can go in here and see, make sure that you've added everything that you need to add for this year. When you take option 4, it shows you this. So in our sort of base tax financial interface, you can send real estate, delinquent real estate, mobile home, delinquent mobile home. Again, there are separate financial interfaces for transmission, mineral interest, and wind towers. But you can pick all the options you want. You can only pick one date for each option, and you have to have like already prepped those settlements, then you can transfer them together. In addition, you can run option 6 and 7, which give you a lot of different listings. It's amazing to me for two little options because there's sub options, how many listings you want. And again, if you are a county that's concerned because you wanted a listing, somebody wants information that you couldn't find, feel free to give us a call. It's great to have Julie, who did this at a county, and who can say, oh, try running it this way. Or if you want that, yep, we can make that, try running it that way. You really can get any information that you would need through our two little listing options. And then once you feel good about it, you run option 8 and actually create the tax settlement. This sends it across. It creates two things. Do you want to explain that? I don't see that side of it.
Oh, it'll create a receipt badge for all of the county dollars and those dollars that get receipted into all your separate funds. And then it'll create an auditor voucher badge for all of the payments that you need to send out, which will match number 7.
Right.
Report number 7 will match what you're paying out in IFS.
So if you use 7 to proof, then you know you're good to run option 8. So then here we do give you links to where all the other interfaces are. These are in the sequence as well, where we're going to the mineral interest, wind towers, and the transmission lines. You can also do advanced settlements. We see people doing advanced settlements in May because they want to get their school and their state monies out faster. And we see people doing advanced settlements in October because they don't want to run the full settlement till November. We are strongly recommending that people get used to our interface because it's so slick. You don't need to do advanced settlements. It's really easy to either just run your May one a little earlier or to run an additional full settlement in October. We see the most issues later with people who ran an advanced settlement and then had to try to figure out how the next settlement was. We do have that option. We can walk you through it, but we're, again, strongly recommending that people move to doing just one settlement. If you have an advanced settlement, you can only do that with your current real estate. You choose your option, and then down here you'd say yes to an advanced settlement. Again, if you do this, make sure you only do it once because they compile. We've had people do like 3 different 50% advanced settlements, and then when they get there, they've paid 150%, but they didn't actually do that much, and it gets messy. But if you do that, then you can go in here. Do we allow them to do?
I don't know. I think it just reaccumulates. It adds money to it.
It adds money to it. Yeah. So then you pick your percentage that you want to send. You can either designate townships and school districts, or you can just leave it blank and do all of them. That's it. Any other comments or questions? If we don't, that's it for us today. We do not have plans to connect with you again until like fall TNT-ish time, early fall TNT-ish time. If there are trainings you would like to see happen, over the summer, stuff like this that we don't usually touch on at our meetings, send us an email, let us know. We're open to that over the summer. Otherwise, I'm going to stop our